My guest today is Mike Grantis. Please say hello and tell us a bit about yourself, Mike.
Louise, thanks so much for having me. My name's Mike Grantis. I've kind of been in and around the crypto blockchain space since 2016. Bit of a serial entrepreneur. Started a digital marketing company out of university, scaled it into the 7 figures, then started a crypto media site, which I sold in 2023, and then started a crypto venture capital fund with a good friend of mine, Josh Field, called Contango Digital Assets. We started off with the goal of kind of accelerating the adoption of decentralized systems. And so we were sort of broad spectrum crypto very early on. And then it was kind of in mid 2023 that we saw the way that AI was developing, and we saw that there's probably nothing more important to decentralize than AI. And so we were one of the first companies, or one of the first VCs at least, to plant our flag at the intersection of blockchain and AI. And it was through that we really started to see kind of the crossover of these two parallel fields happening faster and faster, pretty much out of sight to most at the time. And so we made a few early stage investments into companies that were building at the intersection of blockchain and AI, or at least AI on chain. And then we found this wonderful network called Bittensor. And that was in summer of 2023. And we thought it was a kind of a light bulb moment, something like Bitcoin. And we hadn't seen it since, being in the space in 2016. And so we thought it was a major opportunity, not just for an investment, but to really roll up our sleeves and build in the ecosystem, given to the victor goes the spoils, and the biggest victors in the Bittensor space are the ones that actually build on the protocol. And so we hired a team of Bittensor native developers, brought in 2 other co-founders that we had worked with on the fund, Victor Teixeira and Jordan Kostopoulos. And we started building General Tao Ventures, which began as a way to shepherd our portfolio companies into Bittensor and help them set up subnets if and when it made sense for their business. And then we realized there was a major opportunity to vertically integrate the stack and really build across all 4 layers of Bittensor. And what we would classify that as is validation, mining, subnets, and applications. And we'll probably talk about the most recent application we're just about to launch, but we've really taken this thesis of vertical integration to the world of Bittensor, and it's worked out for us today.
Yes, you've alluded to something which we will definitely talk about. Was there a specific moment that made you think that Bittensor was the future of intelligence, or was it a gradual realization?
Well, we made our first investment, at least I made my first investment at the intersection of blockchain and AI in 2018. And that was in the SingularityNet ecosystem, founded by Ben Goertzel, world-renowned AI scientist. And he talked a lot about, the need for trust, reputation, and value exchange between AI agents that will need to communicate. They'll need to trust each other, and they'll need to have some native substrate to share value. And so when he was talking about what he was building at SingularityNet, it made a lot of sense. And I went kind of all in on that very early on. And so long story short, I haven't been as close to the SingularityNet ecosystem as of yet, but I haven't seen the real world output from that ecosystem that I would have hoped to at this point. And then somebody in my, investor community sent over the Bittensor white paper, and I kind of read through it, and I was like, holy smokes, this is kind of the real world iteration of what Ben was talking about all these years ago. And so, the white paper had the same kind of look and feel to the Bitcoin white paper. The supply schedule was the same as Bitcoin. I think it's, it's hilarious that Bitcoin, the world's, biggest and first introduction to the world of blockchain, hasn't been replicated yet. 21 million 4-year halving cycles. And so that made a lot of sense to me. It was, easy to kind of draw those parallel lines between the two ecosystems. And then, I started to see, I got into the Discord and I started to see the quality of the conversation, the quality of the people that were in the Discord. And that was what brought me into Bitcoin in the beginning days, was really the level of education of some of the people that were in the early Bitcoin days. It just felt like the smartest people in the room were gravitating towards Bitcoin. And in the same way, the smartest people in the room were gravitating towards Bittensor. And so as an investor, that's something that I look for. And I think the community is everything in the world of blockchain. And so that got me really excited, and then, fell down the rabbit hole and haven't looked back since.
I'm really glad you brought up Bitcoin there, because one thing I wanted to ask you about was one of your talks compared Bitcoin's growth, Metcalfe's law, to Tao's growth, Reed's law. And I find that so exciting. And so can you walk us briefly through that framework for people that might not be familiar with it?
Sure. So Metcalfe's law is a framework that was used to value telecom companies. And essentially what it says is the value of a network grows exponentially as you add more nodes to the network. So it's kind of value equals n squared, right? And that's because, if you have 5 people in a network and you add a 6th, then all 5 of those people can talk to one more person. And so with every new node, you exponentially grow the overall value and the overall amount of connections within the network. Now, Reed's law says something a little bit different. It says when you have a network that in which you can create subnetworks, and then those subnetworks can connect and speak to each other, the value can actually grow exponentially faster than Metcalfe's law. So what the equation would be is value equals 2 to the n exponent. So 2 to the number of nodes on the exponent. Now, why that's increasingly important within Bittensor is, to this date, we've had 128 subnets. Most of them have very much lived in their own silos. They build their own digital commodities, they produce their own products, they build front-end applications that tie into typically one subnet. But if you look at what's happening, for example, with Affine, where, Const is using multiple different subnets for reinforcement learning, then you start to see the value and it starts to click, right? Not only can I have one subnet that produces a very powerful digital commodity, but I can have those subnets start to connect and speak to each other to create consortiums of digital commodities that are bigger than the sum of their parts. And if you can think about a world with thousands or tens of thousands of subnets, and any end user having the ability to create products and applications that tie in 15, 100, 1,000 different digital commodities produced by different subnets, then you start to see this exponential value start to run away like a runaway train. So I think the scaling law is something that's different between Bitcoin and Bittensor. There are a lot of similarities, but I would place my bets on Reed's law versus Metcalfe's law in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other difference I like is that Bittensor is producing real world value. It's producing things that are going to change the world in different ways. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I would one thing on top of that, right? Like, there was a time in Bitcoin's life cycle in which the marginal cost to mine Bitcoin was 0, right? You could run it on your laptop. You know, the amount of energy it took to mine a Bitcoin block was negligible. We never really, I mean, to some extent for the first year or so in Bittensor, you had low marginal cost. But because all of the compute on Bittensor is doing real work, that period of low or negligible marginal cost was so much shorter than Bitcoin. And I haven't looked this up to know it's true, but I can directionally tell you that this is most likely true, is that the amount of compute capacity on Bittensor in year 4 is probably a heck of a lot more than the amount of compute capacity on Bitcoin in year 4. Now, that has pros and cons, right? Because if you have low marginal cost, you don't need to sell if you're a miner in order to recoup your energy cost. In Bittensor, you do, but then you also have the value of what's produced on the back end. And so there's going to be some sort of tightrope that we're going to have to walk, in which miners have to produce value as cheap as they possibly can, and they have to monetize that value in order to and the subnets have to monetize that value in order to kind of recoup that cost. So I think it's an interesting proposition. I'm really excited to see how it plays out. But I would also just caution people, history is written with probably hundreds of obituaries for Bitcoin in times that people said that it would die. And I think, Bittensor will go through those same cycles, but I'm excited to see where it ends up on the other side.
And there's some very interesting parallels, but also differences. So I think you're right. We've seen it recently with the adjustments in the protocol and Tao flow. We're so early that there are going to be so many changes. But I think it's easy for people to forget how early we are, because one, we're so deep into it, but also things are starting to happen with Bittensor far quicker than they did with, for example, Bitcoin. If you look at the institutional investment coming in and the way companies are accelerating, when I say companies, subnets, that are creating real world companies. Score is a great example. It's out there, as a business to people that probably have no idea what Bittensor is. So there are parallels, but it's so different and it's accelerating so quickly.
What excites me are the subnets that are able to cross the chasm and speak to the real world outside of our Bittensor bubble, right? So Score is definitely one of them. Being able to land real world partnerships with major football teams, and starting to move into any type of computer vision outside of just sports and athletics, I think is massively valuable. Shoots being one where there's literally a whole Reddit stream of people asking how they can run DeepSeek R1 for free because they don't know Shoots exists and they don't know what Bittensor is. But when people start to realize that the actual utility of Bittensor is outstripping the people that even know that Bittensor exists, then things start to get really interesting.
Absolutely. And I'd like to talk now about Project Rubicon, because obviously this is your latest development. So tell us all about it. Tell us why it's important too.
Yeah. So Project Rubicon is our attempt to cross the chasm into the world of high liquidity on Base. And so what we're doing is we're putting together a collective group of some of the top subnets in Bittensor, and bridging their alpha tokens into Base in partnership with Chainlink CCIP, the world's most trusted and most secure bridging infrastructure. The way we see Bittensor as it stands right now, Bittensor is kind of an island. And there have been attempts from other bridges to bring boats from mainland to the island and bring liquidity. But I think this is the first attempt of bringing subnet ships to mainland and showing them the liquidity where it actually lives. And so we've partnered with Chainlink to build this bridge. They've been incredible partners. They were bullish on Bittensor, and we're extremely proud that they've trusted us to build this bridge in partnership with them. We've been building with Base as well, and so We're excited to have the support of the Base ecosystem. We've partnered with Aerodrome to be the first home base for those liquidity pools, given it's one of the largest, if not the largest DEX on Base. And so our goal here is bring as much liquidity to Bittensor as possible. I think it's much easier to bring the subnets to where the liquidity is than it is to bring ships to the island and try and get people onboarded into Bittensor, especially for a retail investor. You need different wallet infrastructure. The nomenclature is a little bit different. It's tough to understand what a subnet is in relation to the rest of the network. And so we thought this was a great opportunity to build real infrastructure that is going to be used by thousands or tens of thousands of people in the immediate term, and actually to partner with the subnet teams to do it. Because I think one of the differences between us and other bridges is that we have the support of the actual subnet teams that are launching on Rubicon. And so they've made commitments to bootstrap the pools with their own alpha tokens and with USDC on the other side to help allow that liquidity to start flowing. We've also made partnerships with market makers in case the subnet teams don't want to balance their own pools. We've put together 3 market making partners in which they can choose from or make their own decisions or choose not to. And so we've gone to market with some of the biggest subnets. We think we'll be opening cohort 2 for new subnets that want to join the movement. But the final thing I'd say on Rubicon is that, we look at Bittensor as a whole and kind of as a sum of its parts. And so when we bring subnets as a collective together, we can then go with collective bargaining power to some of the biggest institutions in the blockchain space and negotiate collective deals for all of Bittensor, as opposed to having to negotiate one-off deals as a subnet or a subnet owner with centralized exchanges where you don't have much leverage. Here we can say, look, we're not charging any fees. We're not charging the subnet $50,000, $60,000 in fees to list on Rubicon. We are allowing liquidity to go where it lives. And then those subnet teams have leverage going into centralized exchange conversations to say, well, hey, look, I'm already getting the liquidity over here. Why would I pay you a listing fee as opposed to just going to base on Rubicon, right? And the truth of the matter is liquidity is moving off of centralized exchanges and moving towards decentralized exchanges. So we're kind of skating to where the puck is going here. And it's exciting to be, the first to launch with Chainlink. Can't say enough about Chainlink CCIP. It is the most secure and the most trusted by some of the biggest institutions in the world. BNY Mellon, Citibank, JP Morgan, MasterCard, just to name a few. And so it is trusted by the biggest institutions in the world. We're audited by HashLock. We are, we've got a team of developers that have been building in Bittensor for over a year and a half now. The team is now 15 total on GTV. So we're really excited to be able to put our best foot forward for the community, but also to help kind of build this collective of subnet owners to be bigger than the sum of its parts.
So someone that doesn't get base liquidity, I mean, if you're in TAO, you probably have an idea about liquidity, but someone who doesn't really understand all the complexities of that, if you had to sum up in a few sentences the biggest benefit that this will bring to the ecosystem, not just in the short term, but in the longer term, what would that be?
It brings new buyers. It brings new cash flow into subnet pools. So it's important to note that anybody buying an X alpha token on Base is actually needing to buy the underlying alpha token on Bittensor Fini chain, right? So whenever you get buy pressure on base, you're also getting buy pressure into your liquidity pool, which helps your emissions um, go up. The other thing is, Bittensor pales in comparison right now to the amount of capital that is moving around on a daily basis on base. Just to put it into perspective, Aerodrome right now is doing about $22 billion a month in trading volume, and that's one exchange on base. So we're bringing liquidity pools to Aerodrome. Anybody with a MetaMask wallet or a Rabi wallet that knows Ethereum can now trade alpha tokens with their existing wallet infrastructure. So they don't need to go set up a new wallet to go get exposure to Bittensor. And it reduces the barriers to entry. So it allows more people that are less familiar with Bittensor to get exposure to the amazing teams and talent that's being built here on Bittensor.
So it's essentially taking it to the masses in a much easier, more user-friendly way. Because I remember when I first set up my Bittensor wallets, like, okay, one step at a time. What am I doing here? Double check. So yeah, you're making it much easier and taking it to people that are already familiar with crypto. But
absolutely,
and
safer and trusted, with the support, the backing, and the underlying bridge infrastructure of Chainlink CCIP. If you are weary about bridges, I would highly recommend looking into the infrastructure that they're built on. So CCIP, as I said, trusted by the biggest institutions in the world, very decentralized. Some of the node providers on the network are the largest telecom companies, the largest banks, the largest institutions in the world. And so CCIP has never been hacked. It is the most trusted by far infrastructure in the world for cross-chain bridging. So hopefully that helps. And, to put the cherry on top, we're also audited by Hashlock. So really excited, and we'll be going through more rounds of audits in the future just to add extra layers of protection. But I think giving people a safe, secure mechanism to get exposure to alpha tokens on other chains is a great place to start.
An environment that they probably already trust and are familiar with, and feel comfortable with. So pretty bullish.
We are.
It must have been a huge amount of work. So you must be really happy now to finally be launching this and going public with it.
Have to give, hats off to, Jordan Kostopoulos, Victor Teixeira. They've been hands-on leads of this project, and all the development team at Bittensor. They've been working weekends. They've been, burning the midnight oil. So all the hats off to them. I'd put up the General Tao Ventures team against anybody.
Would you say this is one of the hardest things that you've done in the Bittensor space, or
I think not? To date, this will be the project that will have the most impact. I think we've got some exciting things to announce. So those will come in due time. But to date, this is definitely the biggest undertaking we've taken as General Tao Ventures, and what we think has the biggest impact for the broader Bittensor community. So we're very proud.
And I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing future developments and where it leads and the impact it makes, which, I think it's going to be pretty big. Switching things up a little bit. So obviously I'm very aware of your time. I always like to finish these with some more human interest questions, just so we can get to know the person behind the name as such. So what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received, and who gave it to you?
The best piece of advice I have ever received, I think honestly, is just to keep going. Sometimes life knocks you down. Sometimes, you know, you just need to block out the noise, and you just need to keep moving, putting one foot in front of the other, and keep building. And I think, you know, anytime somebody makes it, there's somebody that tries to tear them down. And so, yeah, keep building, keep a smile on your face, and everything will be all right.
That smile helps sometimes, that's for sure. If you could have one superpower in life, what would it be and why?
I would like to have the ability to manipulate time. Because I think maybe that's a cop-out answer, but you know, if something bad happens, you can move backwards. If something's boring, you can move forwards. But I think you know, time is a very interesting construct, and having the ability to bend it to your will would be an interesting superpower.
Yes, it's definitely an interesting construct. I do think of it in that terms. So yeah. Slightly different question now. Favorite movie and why?
My favorite movie is Inception. I love a movie that makes me think, and I think Christopher Nolan is an absolute master. Made some of my favorite movies: Tenet, Dark Knight, Interstellar. And you know, I think the dream space is very interesting as well. I think there's probably a lot that we still have to learn about the meaning of dreams. Yeah, I'm at a place in Mexico. I got a dream catcher right behind me. But I think you know, that when I watched that movie for the first time, it kind of shattered a lot of glass, and changed my paradigm on a lot of things. So
Yeah.
and I love Leo.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Yes. And I like a Hans Zimmer soundtrack
Absolutely.
anytime. I have a habit of putting the songs on loops, and one of the ones that I do that most with is Time from Inception. And it really helps me focus for some reason. So talking of music, what piece of music or song never fails to put you in a great mood?
So I am a huge Rufus Du Sol fan, and love Rufus Du Sol. I would say if I'm working, I love classical music. Now, you know, I'm not a classical music buff, but you know, I'll just throw on a playlist on Spotify, and I find it helps the creative juices flow. So, Rufus Du Sol, in terms of, you know, a little bit higher energy, dance, or whatnot. But if I'm just working or you know, passing the time, classical music is great.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your time today. I've really appreciated it, and I found it insightful as well. So thank you. And what are you most excited about the coming months, especially with the GTAO team? And how would you invite the Bittensor community to either support you or get involved, or learn more about what you're doing?
There is a lot going on at General Tao Ventures. We are close to closing on two what we feel are major acquisitions for the Bittensor team, for General Tao Ventures in general. We will be going through a rebrand, so that to me is very exciting. It will stay within the ethos of what we're doing, but I think we're really excited for what's to come. And you know, I think continuing to build on the products that we already have. We have Kartha and 0x markets that are being launched before Christmas. And so there's you know, there's a lot that the team has been working on. And you know, we're just excited to keep pumping out good products, good innovation, good infrastructure that can be useful for the entire Bittensor community. So excited about that. You know, if you want to follow us, our X handle is at Tao Ventures. And you know where to find me, at Mike Contango on Twitter.
Thank you so much. I will make sure to put the links in with when I post this anyway. So thank you very much for your time today, Mike. That's been really, really good, really interesting, and very much appreciated.
Thanks so much, Louise. Appreciate it.